From kicking off their rivalry in their kickboxing days to having an empathetic showdown at UFC 281, here's why Israel, the last stylebender Adesanya, will never be able to beat Alex Pereira. Israel loves to relate his fights with his much-loved anime, but where would he casually Rasengan through his opponents? This particular one turned out to be his Madara Uchiwa. Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira's rivalry goes way back to 2016 when they first met. The two ninjas were fresh into kickboxing, thirsting to prove themselves to the world. At an event with a befitting name, Glory of Heroes 1, the stage was set. Adesanya had the Powhatan on the back foot, and we all know what Izzy's confidence does to his opponents. But unlike any of those opponents, Pereira seemed unfazed. There we caught the first glimpse of Pereira's stoic demeanor that would later haunt Izzy every time they squared off. Israel was being particularly cautious of his opponent's hands. If you don't know already, his nickname Powhatan literally means stone hands. Even though Pereira was outstruck by Adesanya throughout the bout, he still managed to get in some crucial combinations. He was patient throughout the fight, and now we see why. He went all in while Adesanya tried to cling on for dear life. Talk about being saved by the bell! As the two awaited the decision, Adesanya's face said it all. And even though Izzy was already celebrating his win, the stylebender got a wake-up call. The fight was awarded to the blue corner, while Israel continued to protest. As for the fans, they were just awestruck to have witnessed one of the most entertaining kickboxing bouts ever. The two gave it all, and I can't wait until they lock horns again. In March 2017, that's exactly what happened. Only this time, the stakes were much higher. Izzy didn't just want the W, he wanted vengeance. And what a way to do it! But in front of his rivals' people, the 15th edition of the Glory of Heroes was taking place in Sao Paulo. This time, he absolutely demolished Adesanya, flooring him with two potent blows in the third round. Yet again, Pereira's striking power proved to be too much for Israel. Did you know Pereira punches harder than the most ferocious striker the UFC has seen, Francis Ngannou? Well, that's at least what the punching machine said when Pereira scored a whopping 969. You do not want to be on the receiving end of one of those. The last stylebender was compromised, only surviving with his will or his ninja way. But alas, Pereira proved to be too much for the Kiwi, who eventually crumbled onto the canvas. This was the only one of two times he ever got knocked out in the fight game. The second, well, I think you know what's coming. These weren't just losses for Adesanya. Pereira became a curse for him. After Sao Paulo, the two would go their separate ways to pursue their very own protagonist arcs, but their trajectories would be very different from each other. Pereira would be crowned with glory, winning the middleweight title in 2017 and successfully defending it 5 times. As for Adesanya, it wasn't so glorious. He participated in the middleweight contender tournament, only to lose to Jason Wilness via unanimous decision. Pereira left a massive dent in Israel's confidence, and it was time for a change. And so began Izzy's journey in the UFC in 2018. After beating legends such as Robert Whittaker and Anderson Silva, he finally got a taste of gold with the middleweight championship, even though Izzy was cleaning up house, which had people thinking, what if Pereira was to meet him once again? Fate came calling, and Pereira made his entry into the UFC 2021. Fast forward to Madison Square Garden, UFC 281. It was finally time. With the middleweight title on the line, the two met in one of the most anticipated trilogies in the fight game. The stars had aligned, and this time Izzy looked way better than their previous encounters. Adesanya was going for the grapples, something the Powhatan couldn't kickbox his way out of. But Izzy's arch nemesis had learned a thing or two about him, that the Kiwi doesn't really hold up well with his back against the wall. In the 4th round, Pereira mouthed "Ilvak Matar," which politely meant, "I will kill you." From then on out, with ironclad lefts and rights, Izzy was compromised. The referee had to save the last stylebender, and there you had it. And the new, undisputed. You get the picture. Okay, this is just getting a little too ridiculous now. Why can't Izzy get the job done? Izzy is one of the most technical fighters in the UFC, whereas Pereira relies too much on close quarters combat. My take? Pereira is just too strong for Izzy. I mean, look at the man, standing 6'4", 190 pounds of pure brute force. Every tendon tendon in his body is exactly where it needs to be to deliver the kill shot. This mainly stems from Alex's most primal upbringing as a child. Where kids his age were going to school and out partying, Alex was busy training. Pereira can generate an ungodly amount of power in his strikes, and that's one thing that Israel lacks in his arsenal. You could be the best grappler in the world, but if you have an iron fist, all it takes is one clean shot at getting the job done. Their third encounter in the UFC was the perfect example of this. In the very first round of the fight, Izzy almost came close to knocking Pereira out. As the Brazilian tried to corner him, Adesanya fought back with a beautiful combination that rocked Pereira. He managed to rock him, but couldn't really get the job done. Now, imagine if he had the level of power Pereira does. We wouldn't be having this debate. The two gladiators have very different fight styles. Where Israel loves keeping his distance, Pereira is a master at closing in. Everyone can agree Israel dominated the majority of their clash at 281, but it was only when Pereira got in Izzy's face that he couldn't keep up. Admittedly, Israel is a way more rounded fighter than Pereira. He'll catch you on the grapple and strike kicks to slowly wear you out. He's a genius, but even his kicks don't seem to work against Alex. Alex seriously hurt Adesanya when he checked a kick of his. Yep, Alex hurt his perineal nerve, which affected his game drastically through the fight. Well, guess you know where Alex will be paying attention in their next encounter. But maybe it isn't all physical. Perhaps Pereira is just in Israel's head. Where Israel has been harboring a grudge in his heart, Pereira maintains his stone-cold demeanor. Seriously, the man looks as though he knows no emotion. Now, those are the eyes of someone who's seen hell. You see, Pereira didn't have the easiest teenage life. After battling alcoholism, he chose to dedicate every fiber of his being to the fight game, which helped him get out of the pit he was heading toward. How do you stop a man who owes his life to the sport? Quite literally. Some may even argue that Israel performs best when he's the underdog, and that the champ's life spoiled him. He stopped taking risks in his fights ever since he got the belt. Israel is someone who loves the glamour. He loves the attention, and he sure as hell loves being champ. But as we head into their rematch at UFC 287, Israel claims it isn't even about the belt anymore. He wants to take Pereira out. It's almost as if this is all he ever talks about. You can say Pereira is living in Izzy's head rent-free. As of now, it'll take more than a miracle for this guy to get the better of the Brazilian brute. And that, folks, is why Adesanya will never be able to beat Alex Pereira.